Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery. Today's video, I'm going to be going over a review of Shrewd's Mini Mag scope. So let's start out today and let's just talk about why I chose my Shrewd scope here, what I'm looking for in a scope, and really what I'm wanting to accomplish by what I'm purchasing and what I'm getting out of my products. When it comes to a scope, I'm really looking for pin brightness. I'm probably an odd shooter in that I shoot a fiber pin for everything that I'm going to be doing, whether it be field, indoor, outdoor, 3D archer, anything like that. The big thing with this Shrewd scope is that I do have very good pin brightness on here. I'm actually indoors right now under some artificial lighting, and even indoors under this artificial lighting, you can still see that the pin brightness on this fiber is very visible. I'm actually able to shoot outdoors all the way until basically dark without losing my pin sight at all. I will actually lose the vision of seeing the target with it getting too dark before I'll ever lose the pin. So whatever fiber material that they use, it really gathers a lot of light. It'll pick it up and it really transmits it very well through here. Another thing that I'm looking for when I get a scope is the size. I prefer a smaller scope. This scope housing right here on their Mini Mag series is a 29mm scope housing. This is basically their shrunken down version of the Nomad scope. It's very, very popular, especially among 3D shooters. So the Nomad comes in a 42mm housing and also a 35mm housing, and this is just a shrunken down version of this. The reason I chose a 29mm housing is because I want to have a small enough scope that I can make my peep smaller and not have as big of a variance for misses. So using that smaller scope housing for me allows me to use a smaller aperture. There's less movement that I can do with my hand and change my anchor point a little bit, so there's just a little bit more accuracy downrange. When you use a small scope housing like that, you do lose a little bit of light transfer, so when it's getting closer to dark, you might see that, you know, the peep and everything maybe gets a little bit fuzzier, but I really, even with this setup being a smaller 29mm housing, I really have to go until almost completely dark before I ever see any issues with that. One of the main things that I'll say for this scope is that there is a ring that you can purchase. I'll take this off here. Everything on here screws on and off the front and the back of the scope housing, so they have a threaded front and rear, and it looks like it's all an aluminum housing, so it's very well made. There is a ring design that you can get. There's also a sunshade rather that you can purchase for the back that's a little bit shorter than this, that also has this ring on the inside as well. Now, along with just the white standard etched in ring that you can get on the sunshade version of this, or just a standard ring like this, you can also buy kits here where they can have different color rings. You can have green, I believe there's an orange, just different colors like that that you can choose through. So it may be a little bit easier for your eye to actually see that color, or you may just want to accessorize the colors with something on your bow. So it gives you some options there, but that also helps very much whenever you're trying to center that peep with the scope every single time, especially as it's starting to get a little bit darker. Now, as I mentioned before, everything on these housings screws in from the front or from the back. So that gives us some different options. For an archer that likes to use a lens in their scope, you can actually run that lens in the front of the scope that's going to be facing towards the target, so that's more of a traditional area, or you can actually put that lens on the back side of the scope, so the side of the scope facing towards you. So most archers are probably going to run that lens still in the front of that scope, just like a traditional setup, but it does give you some different options if you are running a sight fiber like I am, that if you have this post on the back side of it, closer over here to the other side of the level, so like if you're using their integrated sight pin or something of that nature, you do have the option of being able to run the lens here or here closer to your eye. Now, when it comes to talking about mounting a pin in there, this scope actually is going to come with a pin that's already with the scope housing. So they use a very thin aluminum styled pin. So this razor pin, they call it, this is going to be very thin throughout the middle here. It's really going to help you whenever you're looking through the actual scope itself. It's not going to cloud your vision. It's not anything that's going to stand out or really catch your attention, but it also stands there so that it's going to cover on the back side of the scope housing. It actually covers the fiber that goes through there too. So it lines up perfectly with that. and you can get that all set up to where nothing obstructs your view and all you're focusing on is just the end of that pin. Along with that, you can mount it in 8 different slots. These smaller holes that you see here in the actual scope body, there's 8 of these all the way around the scope housing, and that allows you to have options to mount this as a standard up pin, a down pin, from one of the sides, or even at some angles. So maybe if you want to play around having it at an angle for maybe 3D targets to help you aim better at what you're looking at on that target, help you find the 12 ring, something along that nature, that might help you as well. And they also have a light kit that it'll accept too. So any of the standard light kits that are out right now, this will accept that fully and help you control the light brightness, different pin sizes by varying the lights as well. Now along with that, they also have this hole here on the side of the scope housing that's actually drilled and threaded for you to be able to screw in a rheostat light. So if you don't want to use one of the like an LP light kit or something like that, you can still use a light by just screwing in one of those rheostat lights rather here on this side housing. Now when it comes to sizing of the pin, that was something that's very important to me as well. And luckily for me, with Shrewd, you can actually go from very small at a 0.010 all the way to very large at a 0.196. So that's a pretty big size pin, and it's going to be comparable to what a lot of archers would use as a dot on their scope for the sizing of it, maybe for indoor or something like that. But what this does is it really gives us an ability to fine-tune how we want our pin size and how we want everything to look as far as what it's covering on the target. So maybe if you want a really small pin, if you're going to be shooting 3D animals, that helps you aim a little bit better on those style of targets, or if you're wanting maybe a larger pin for an indoor style target, or maybe some feeder targets or field targets. So you can actually make it really easy for you. All you do is just take this post out for the fiber optic pin, you place another one in there that's the different size diameter, and then the fiber just threads right through it, and then you can change it really quickly and you can try a lot of different options that way. Now the last thing I want to talk about here is the way that Shrewd sets up their lenses. So this is pretty unique to Shrewd and what they're doing. All their lenses are encapsulated, so they're all set up. It's going to be a lot smoother transition taking them in or out. You're not going to have to worry about, if you place your dot a little bit off center and you put the lens in and it spins around as you're tightening everything down and it's not quite in the same spot as it was before, you're not going to have to worry about that this way. This makes transition a lot smoother for you, and it's going to make everything a lot cleaner as well. They also use feather vision lenses, so that is a very high quality lens, and when I do use a lens, that's actually the only brand of lens that I choose to use. So if you're in the market to purchase a scope right now, I would definitely recommend Shrewd Archery. They've withstood all the tests that I could throw at them and all the stringent requirements that I actually have in my own scopes and what I look for. Thank y'all for watching this video. I'll see you soon.